Evening all, welcome to Kicking Dust. Right, we have a celebration. A document has been issued, the white paper is out, and we are going to take a very long discussion of this. So you might want to pause it, you might want to go get yourself a nice cup of tea, or maybe a nice kind of gin and tonic, or maybe if you're kind of that way inclined, a Bloody Mary. Who knows, but go and get your favoured tipple because we're going to talk about this. And we're going to talk documentation. Woo! Right, let's talk about this white paper. White papers, for those that don't know, are, I guess, your kind of primary preliminary document that you give, that you discuss a feature, a political stance, a legislative act, and you call it a white paper. You then go through the various processes of turning it into, legislation, really. So I think white paper is usually the beginning point. So this is the white paper about the Council of Planetary Management, something that I have, let's say, some views upon. And I think positive and negative, we're going to maybe look at that today. If you want to just know the TLDR piece of this document is fantastic. CPM0 are fantastic for writing this and working with CCP, who also helped write this. And I think just generally, this is exactly the step in the right direction. So I know, positive stuff, eh? So let's talk about it. The council basically is going to be 7 members. So that's an interesting thing to start with. And like any council, I think pretty much like the CSM, is going to be basically whoever gets in, they will then vote amongst themselves, an internal vote to determine who's the chairman and the secretary. The chairman is the person who has the primary link between CCP and the CPM. So you think of them almost as your kind of, chairman, your spokesperson for the internal group. And then you have your secretary, who is effectively responsible for the minutes of what is discussed. It's not just a secretary. It's more of a, this is the person who keeps the governance of the process going. So it's actually, secretary is probably one of the more important roles within this. And really, that's it. The CPM is apparently a flat organisation, so there's no special powers, there's no kind of additional responsibilities in general. It's really just about handling, communications and so on. So it's not a hierarchical structure, other than the chairman will be the primary link between CPM and CCP. So that's the good stuff. And as I sort this, I'm actually reading it as we go. So candidate eligibility for the CPM is going to be anybody who's held a dust account for more than 180 days. That's half a year. And that's a really good thing. So basically somebody has had to have invested 6 months of their time into dust. So that's a really nice thing. They're not allowed to be employees, volunteers, interns, affiliates, strategic partners, or employees of other gaming companies, which is a shame in a way, but makes a lot of sense. You can't really have a developer for EA in the CPM because there's always going to be that conflict of interests. Even if there's an NDA there's still going to be leakage. So much like an elderly gentleman's underwear, leakage is going to be a big problem that they have to be, let's say, factoring in. So that's probably, again, quite a good thing. Let's see if I scroll down. There is also a very nice clause in here, which is CCP reserves the right to exclude anyone from candidate eligibility as well. So, if somebody is in game, or if they, if pretty much somebody's a massive dicklord, and I mean a massive, massive dicklord, then they have the right to say, to be honest, you're not really fit for purpose for this. So that is good. CCP, it's their game, it's their company, it's their initiative. They should always have the final say on if somebody is right or wrong as well. All candidates got to verify their identity. So basically you've got to run under your own name. You've got to be over 21. That's a good thing. The last thing you want is something, life is let me try and soften the blow for this one. I think that in life you can be very young and very capable in all areas, okay? And but you mustn't underestimate wisdom. Wisdom is something that you get through age and experience. And I think a lot of the time, when I was at 21, would I want to be on a council of a game? No, I'd rather be out, drinking drinking crazily, driving like a loon, and screwing women. I'm sorry, but that's the life I would have rather had. But that's just me. I think, to be honest, if you're under that and you're a bit bummed that you're not getting it, don't worry. It's a framework that you'll just have to accept. You'll eventually grow into it, and I think then you could become a good candidate in the future. But that's one of the things. You need to be over 21. You also have to have a valid passport, which is, again, amazing how many people don't. And you also have to be able to travel to both Iceland and China, which I would not underestimate that. I travel a lot for work, and quite frankly, I hate traveling. I don't enjoy it at all, but it's a necessary evil. So you just grin and bear it. Usually I just get blitzed and blind drunk before I get on the plane. And then I just, vaguely remember waking up in the airport being kind of hassled by some security guard. That's kind of my trick when I travel. But I think particularly with these cultures, Iceland and China are very different cultures to Western culture. So I think if you've never experienced outside of the US or the UK or Europe, then you're going to be quite shocked, I think, with the different cultures. Not that I'm saying they're going to offer you, stoat testicles and horse dong and make you eat it. They will, by the way, because that's what most people do when you get to a new country, is they try and make out that they actually eat horse bollocks all day. It's a delicacy in China, apparently. What it is they'll try and make you eat it. So don't fall for it. It's the oldest trick in the book. So there we go. So you're going to be able to move around, which is, again, a good thing. You've also got to run under your real name. So I think this is something that, hopefully that is something for many of you is not a problem. Unless you have a really funny name like Bert Postlethwaite, in which case I'll vote for you, bro, because that name is fucking funny. So let's move on now to voter eligibility. In order to be eligible to vote, an active Dustwife on 4 account must have at least 90 days in age, and you must have had at least 60 hours of playtime in the 12 months before voting begins. So that makes a lot of sense. I like that. That makes sense. Now, again, a lot of people were saying, yeah, but what about people with multiple accounts? What about these like farms that are popping up? That's right, like farms. People who are farming likes and selling likes. You know about this, bro? Sure you do. I'm serious. This is a thing, honest. Anyway, that's another video. Yeah, basically the voter eligibility makes a lot of sense indeed. You could go to town with this, but I think, quite frankly, they need to keep it relatively simple. And I think, yes, you're going to have people with multiple accounts who are just going to spam votes for a particular candidate. It doesn't, I don't think, we'll get onto that, but I don't think any candidate at the CPM is going to have any ability to actually influence a game mechanic in their favour maliciously. I honestly don't. From looking at the mandate, it doesn't really give them any ability to do that. There's no flaw that says, I want Titans nerfed, and I just don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. And I think also from what CCP, this is why a framework's so important and a white paper is so important, because it does actually set out the extents of the power for these things. So anyway, let's carry on. So that's the voting eligibility. Simple, eh? You just got to have those things, and you can vote. Now, the way the mechanics will work is also quite interesting. I'm just going to go straight to the point. Each candidate may cast a single vote for one or more candidates, up to a maximum of 7 candidates. So you're going to vote for 7 people maximum, and then that's the way it will work. And then I believe ballots anonymous, ballots are tallied. I'm just reading it now. So it's going to be open for 2 weeks, and it's going to be pretty much the top 7 win. Now, once that 7 are announced, it's not the most voted for person gets chairman. It will be then voted internally, as mentioned before. So pretty simple, really, isn't it? I think that's cool. I think to maximize votes are determined using a single transferable vote method, so STV voting. So to determine yeah, that makes sense. So to be clear, you can pretty much run for CPM if you have the aforementioned criteria, over 21, passport, etc. And you've been playing for 6 months and you have blah, blah, blah. To vote, you have to have been playing for 90 days, so that's 3 months. And you have to have at least played 60 hours of playtime in the last 12 months. So that's good, because it does mean that, again, you can't have an army of votes unless you've really put the time in to kind of invest in it. So, again, good protection. That's a nice thing. And that then pretty much goes into a vote. You then vote for the top. You have the maximum up to 7 votes. Maximum of 7 candidates. I'm trying to make sure I get that right. Each account may cast a single vote for 1 or more candidates. So you could maybe vote for 7 candidates, okay? Or you could vote for 1. That's it. And that is good, because then you can start to kind of eliminate, the lower runners, and then start to see who's going. So that makes sense. And once you have done that, the CPM will then be elected and voted in. And the way that this will then work is there will be CPM summits and FanFest. So it's expected that the CPM candidates will also go to Reykjavik for the FanFest thing. That's where you get to walk on stage and then everybody can mock you for how weird you are and how like short you are or how strange you are or how fat you are or how thin you are or what you're wearing or what you're not wearing. I warn you now, just go in a suit or something, because otherwise you're just going to get mocked for either too fashionable, not fashionable enough. Oh, I don't envy those people walking out onto that stage because, you know, to be honest, we're all going to be sat there taking the piss out of you. But again, you know, I'm sure if you can handle that, then you're going to do just fine. The CPM term duration is 12 months. So this is a thing we're going to repeat every year. Sounds a bit painful, but I think once the framework's there, it's actually probably just going to be something. You press a button, it starts voting, you capture the votes, and you do it. I think a year's long enough as well. I think that probably will see a lot of. I mean, in that time, they could end up having to remove and add players anyway because they may breach the NDA. They may just lose interest in the game and drift away, which is always a risk. So I think these are good things that they're building the framework in. Right, voter communication with the CPM, blah 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 diddly do. What a load of bollocks. No, I'm kidding, it's good stuff. The next one we're going to go to is communication between generally all of the teams. I think is going to be done through the forums. It's going to be done through the CPM are actually going to have quite a mandate to act, because they have three key points, three major roles within the Dust 514 development process. A, input into high-level planning and roadmaps. That effectively means what the CPM0 have been doing, which is working with the CCP dev team, working with the Shanghai team, and really just understanding what are the pain points that require, you know, effort to resolve. It will also be to give a fresh perspective of what the game needs, what maybe the player experience is lacking, and that kind of thing. So it's going to be a very open-ended, high-scope, high-scale discussion around all areas to do with Dust 514, and this is fantastic. The second point they're going to be doing is they're going to feedback on team features. So as teams develop features for the release, they're basically going to go and share this with the CPM to review it. So it's going to be, you know, here you go guys, this is what's coming soon, look at this is how you're going to fight drones, look at this is what mechs do, hey guys, look at this is an orbital nuke, what do you think of this? And these guys are going to have to resist themselves getting so excited that the table rises, if you know what I mean, because I think this is going to be the fun part of what the CPM has to do. It's really going to be saying, yeah, this is great, no, actually this is not so good. You know, to be honest, this is where I think a CPM candidate is going to make or break, because if you are the kind of, you know, young puppy kind of guy or girl that is just so easily impressed by anything to do with CCP, you know who you are. Yeah, you. If you're that kind of person that just, quite frankly, you know, GG's everything that CCP do, then you're not going to really last in that particular role, because I think this is where, quite frankly, a more cynical and I think observational and analytical eye is needed, because a lot of what you may see may look quite good. Like, hey guys, these are the changes for tanks. And on the face of it, you may think, yeah, it seems pretty good. They're cheap now. Railguns are pretty good as well. Might mean people you start using them. But if you don't really kind of take it to the nth degree and you don't look further down the line, you're probably going to balls up the game. So I would say this is where, this one to me is a key one, because this really does require people to actually take on CCP aggressively, because if you don't, you're just going to end up looking a bit like a fanboy. Do you know what I mean? And I think this is where a lot of the candidates that I've seen perhaps nominated so far are not really fit for purpose. I know, controversial, but I don't think they're fit for purpose, because I actually think they lack the spine to go against CCP's holy word. I don't say this to kind of piss people off and troll people. I mean, I do this at work. If I see somebody come in and say, look, they want a promotion, they want to do this job, and you just realize they are highly unsuitable to do it. You know, a janitor comes in and says, I want to be a brain surgeon. You've got to think of a kind of polite way to say to them, I don't think this is you, because I think a lot of the people who've applied for CPM candidacy already perhaps don't necessarily have the X factor, to use a fucking awful metaphor. They don't have that X factor, and they also don't have, I think, an edge about them. Okay, they're too quick to sort of say, "Oh, CCP, I love you." Twitter this, Twitter that. "Oh, I love you. Oh, CCP, so cool. Yeah. Oh my God, thank you, Logi, bro. Oh." If it's too much like that, then you're just going to look like you're going to look like a little baying puppy around the legs of CCP. And trust me, you don't want to be labelled with that. Trust me, you really don't, because that's your credibility gone in a shot as well. If you come across, or if you end up being that kind of person. On to point 3. This is again, very important, but I think this is going to be the killer for a lot of people, is community advocacy. And let me just read you exactly what it says, because I'm quite smiling at this. The CPM will have an ongoing role of collecting general feedback from the community and high-profile players. What's a high-profile player, CCP? I hope they don't mean people like YouTubers and us, because we know nothing. But having said that, maybe that is something to bear in mind, because I think, again, when you look at to conveying a message through the forums will get you hundreds of views, certainly. It'll get you hundreds of people aware of that. Conveying a message through YouTube, through the various and multiple YouTube people out there who do YouTube for Dust, you're going to get thousands of people. And I think this is something that, again, I really hope the CPM understand, is that actually there's quite an interesting dynamic to be had through having the medium of video, the medium of oratory conversation through podcasts, etc., that I think will really be something quite awesome. Now, whether or not that'll happen, we will see. But I think certainly I can say that this is going to be the big one for a lot of the CPM candidates, is they're not going to be terribly comfortable with this part of it, because it means that a lot of the people who've certainly run for CPM so far are very egotistical. They see themselves as they see themselves as pillars. That's a horrible saying, and I think the reality is that CPM sits under the community, not above it. So if you become it's like a politician. Yeah, they have benefits, but the reality is they are under the populace, because the populace have the ability and the right to shit on them continually. And with this game and with this community, that is going to happen. You're going to see continually CPM is going to have to go to quite unpleasant parts of the population to figure out problems, to bring them to CCP. So therefore, if they're not very good community advocates, which I would probably level at CPM0 was a failing for some of them. Okay, not all, certainly not all, but for some of CPM0, their community interaction and capability was very poor. I mean no disrespect, but I think it's my opinion and I'm entitled to it, god damn it. But I think certainly that's going to be a very hard bit. It's going to be like polling for the British National Front, which are a group of complete racist assholes, and you're just going to have to go around and be spat at in the face all the time because people hate you. And I think there is going to be that for the beginning of CPM1, is that there's not going to be a great deal of love for a lot of the CPM from all areas. And I think as you go to different parts of the community, you have to go to them, because if you don't, then you're basically not doing your job properly if you don't go to everybody and say, tell me what's shit with this game. And I think sometimes those difficult conversations from those difficult parties are going to be infinitely more valuable than the fanboys who say everything's fine, leave it as it is. Okay. So that's the 3. That's literally what the CPM will do, those 3 things. That is it. No special capes, no holier than thou, I get to do this, I get to do that. It is literally those 3 things. Input to high-level planning, feedback on what the game, the features of the game as it develops, and community advocacy. That is it. Last few points. The CPM community representative conduct is obviously linked to the EULA. If you break the EULA, then you'll probably be losing your CPM candidacy as well. We have seen previously in the CSM people leaking information because they want to benefit and make ISK, and we probably will see that again. I think sadly that already a lot of people disregard the NDA of this premise quite highly. So a lot of people I've spoken to on the quiet have all said, oh well, yeah, if I get in, don't worry, I'll let you know what they're saying. And it's like, that's not really what you should be saying to me, particularly me. You shouldn't be saying that to me at fucking all. And I think these people, if they do run, they will be basically made to pay for that statement. The NDA also is pretty much a an important thing to sign, because if you break it, you could also be liable for IP infringement. So, that comes with quite a high dollar tag as well. So I think, being CPM is not a light thing to do. I think a lot of people underestimate it, but I also think some of the people who I think may run or are running or maybe are going to run will do very well. And I think they have the the social background, the educational background, the experience background, and I think also the ethical background. They really do actually take that seriously. I think they will do an exceptional job. Now the question is whether or not they would get elected, and I think the further point is whether or not they would actually want to do it. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed that. Hell of a conversation. Post in the comments, what do you think about this white paper? Is it a load of bilge? Is it fantastic? Is it maybe what we've been waiting for all this time? Personally, I think it's fantastic, and I think it's exactly what we've been waiting for all this time, hence my comment. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.